Okay. Why is Shaman bad? You're really going to twist my arm and make me answer the question. So Shaman's not bad. When I say something's bad, what I mean is it's like in a competitive sense or in a design sense or in some kind of sense, it doesn't line up to what else you could play instead. Like, I think Shaman's bad. You can still play a Shaman and kill monsters and have fun. I think Forge Guard's bad, but you can still play a Forge Guard and kill monsters and have fun. But here, bear with me, okay? Hear me out, bear with me, those things. Why is Shaman bad? Shaman's bad because he's old, outdated, weak, boring, and probably something else too. But let's go through each of those, okay? Start with the Mastery passive. He's got this 10 attunement down here. Why 10 attunement? Doesn't really do anything. Having stats is fine, but way back when, and you would know this if you watched my Exsanguinous video, not the 6-second one, but the 10-minute one, I talk about what attunement used to do in the past. So a long time ago, before resistances existed in the game, there was something called protections. And attunement, before it gave you mana, which is what it gives you now per point, it used to give you protections per point. And protections were EHP with no cap. So you could just have a bunch of protections in your build and it'd make you very tanky against whatever that protection was, like fire protection, cold protections, necrotic protections. So attunement used to give protections. This elemental resistance while you control a totem, you know how it's kind of weird and boring and I'm not really sure why it's here? Well, there's a reason for that. Because it used to give you protections before resistances existed in the game. So he's old. He's outdated. The things on the top of the tree that don't really make sense, resistance per active totem, elemental resistance per active totem, all those things are weird, aren't they? It's because they used to give you protections and they haven't really been updated in their relative strength ever since protections were removed from the game. You know, more than 3 years ago at this point, I think. Fact check me on that. I'm pretty sure it's more than 3 years ago at this point. So it's, whoa, he's old. Wait, hold up. Go like this, go like this. Primer planets. Okay. He's old, he's outdated. The other skills, right? So most classes have 2 skills beyond their halfway point that you get access to. So like if you want to use Frenzy Totem, you gotta be a Beastmaster. So Shaman only has 1. The one skill that he does have access to, it's very niche in application and it's also an old skill. So let's take a look at it real quick. One of the hallmarks of an old skill is that it has nodes in it that are like 0 out of 7, 0 out of 8, which isn't necessarily the case here because we only have 0 out of 4, and I think 0 out of 5 is at least as the biggest offender here. But Avalanche doesn't really have more multipliers in it. It has things in it that like change the utility of it and make it do different things like channel or unchannel that follows you. And like there's a bunch of idols that feel like they should do something with Avalanche. And the what's this, like more mana cost, no longer channeled, boulder frequency. Oh, there's a more multiplier all the way up there against frozen enemies. Oh, 10% more damage per point. Hit damage while totem active. Yeah, 15. Okay, all right, look at that. So Avalanche, the applications of Avalanche are niche at best. You can use them to pop your totems and cause your game to lag and lose frames and not really know what's going on. I've seen a lot of builds like that. They all kind of look the same to me. They look hilarious, but that's really what Avalanche does. You can use it to scale spell damage, and then like for a single target, maybe you play spell EQ, and all of a sudden you have 2 builds that exist. So we've detailed 2 builds. You got like a totem pop kind of build and like a spell Avalanche along with spell Earthquake. So we got 2 different builds. The third build that you might play as you're playing a Shaman is something along with Storm Totem. So realistically, if you're using Storm Totem, you're probably using it for damage. And like Storm Totem as of 0.9, it got a buff where it, it does better single target damage because of mechanics change. And then it also has like damage per your own shock chance. So you scale shock chance, this thing gets more flat damage on it. And that's good. And apparently it can do like 300 corruption. So I'm sure it can even go further than that because 300 to 400 is not a big change. But the point is, now you have 3 builds that you can play. We've determined that there are 3 separate builds that are exclusive to Shaman. There's a Storm Totem DPS build, there's an Avalanche Pop Your Totem build, and then there is a Avalanche spell damage kind of spell like auto runner, auto bomber kind of thing. So let's compare Shaman to Beastmaster and Druid. Beastmaster is a fair comparison. because Beastmaster only has, 10 or 15 builds that you can experiment with instead of 3. There's like all the different summons you can do. You can do multiple summons. You can do one summon. You can do melee stuff with all the aspects. You can do a spellcaster stuff, take advantage of the crit multi, then you get a master with the links. There's a lot of stuff that you could do here. Comparing it to Druid, on the other hand, is a bit of an unfair comparison because Druid is one of the most flexible, fun, powerful things that you can do in the entire game. It's also one thing that's been updated. So I said Shaman was not updated, and Druid has been updated. You can do spellcaster stuff, transform stuff, multi-transform stuff, caster stuff, attribute stacking stuff, crit multi stuff, damage over time stuff. You can do anything with this. And the nodes at the top of the tree support that. You have hide skin up here. You have rage gain on crit, good looking stuff. Like reduced damage taken over time. You get stat stacking, you get strength, all this good stuff. You got even more damage reduction. Like you got a lot of good stuff in the Druid skill tree. Going back to Shaman real quick, what do you have in the top half of the skill tree? The best node, in my opinion, is this one right here, this Rune of Awe, and this is a good node. Calling this a bad node would be just a lie. 2 flat damage per point, be it spell damage for yourself or spell damage for a minion. It's good. It's a very, very strong node. The rest of these nodes are incredibly lackluster. We have minion freeze rate multi. When you kill a frozen enemy, a random totem is healed and has its, I'm already bored reading this. We have this node here, which has mana regen on it, which you need because all of these shaman skills cost 1,000,000 mana. You have like weirdly bad, only happens once every 3 seconds. And none of these have scaling, so they're all weirdly bad. This node up here gets an honorable shout out. Spell damage per active totem. You can have many totems up. You could have like 9 totems. I think it's 9 totems if you're in Spriggan form, or you could have like 5, maybe 5. I don't know exactly how many minions, but like Thorn Totem has like 5, and then like Storm Totem would be 6, and then like maybe you have a healing totem from casting Terra's Blessing on yourself. So you could have like 7, and then 7 times 4 is 20. So this is like 28% increased damage per point. That's a really big node. Like this node is fine. The issue with this node is that you need to put, what is it, 50, 45 points into the skill tree before you can access this node. And like, what on earth are you speccing into? You have the totem stuff at the very beginning, that's fine. You have flat cold or flat lightning damage here, flat cold damage here. You got this node, and then, then you got to spend like 10 points on nothing in order to get this. Compare that to like a Druid skill tree or a Beastmaster skill tree. I feel like there aren't enough points in the game. Like there's so many good things that I want to be speccing into. And Shaman is old. It hasn't been updated since the attunement stuff. It didn't get a facelift when Druid did. Its hallmark skills are, technically viable, and your frames are going to disappear by using Avalanche. Part of its identity is tied to Tempest Strike, one of the worst skills in the whole game. So like you can play a Shaman and you can have fun and you can kill monsters and you can. From my perspective, when I recommend classes to people, like I talk to a lot of new players, when I recommend classes to people, if I tell you to play a Shaman, if you play a Shaman and you don't like it, you got to make a new character. And that stinks, right? You don't get to respec. You don't get to, I'll just go play a different build instead. It's no big deal. Like I've heard that Last Epoch is so good at respecking other characters, and you don't. Like you play a Shaman, if you don't like the Storm Totem build that you played, go make a new level 1 character, because there's basically nothing that you can spec over to instead. You can technically play some skills. And that brings us to the last point of a Shaman. This is the last critique of it, and like why people say it's garbage. In a competitive sense, I often say I don't like playing skills personally. I don't like playing builds personally that are a bad version of something else. And Shaman, other than the Storm Totem build, which is locked to Shaman, and Avalanche, which is locked to Shaman, it's really hard to find a build that's better on Shaman than anything else. Most Shaman builds could just be a Druid instead, or it could just be a Beastmaster instead. Worst case scenario, you get 20% increased health and mana. You get like a tier 7% health roll on your chest piece for free, just for being a Druid. and maybe it costs you some damage, but like, you know, you get other stuff here instead. It's really hard to justify going a Shaman, and like, it's fun to try to, and it's a nice piece of clickbait. Like, wow, is Shaman good? We finally made Shaman good. And it's like, even if Shaman is good, even if there's one good Shaman build out there, okay, well, we had 3 before, and now we have 4, as opposed to Druid, which has 50, or Beastmaster, which has 25. Like, Shaman needs a facelift, and it hasn't happened yet. So that's why.